Okay, welcome back. This is Chapter 13, the Lucky 13. This chapter is all about what they call service delivery, which has a little bit to do with data communication. And there's a particular topic coming up here talking about disaster recovery that's of particular interest of mine. So you might want to pay attention to that question. If I like a particular subject, I'm probably going to emphasize it a bit, probably going to have some more test questions. Okay, just telling you all up front. Okay, so start with the learning objectives. Page 413. So key managerial design choices used in delivering technologies. The popular design choices for maintaining high availability. And then the essential practices to maintain services when you have some sort of a catastrophe going on. So high availability is big business. You may have actually heard some things about 5 nines, 99.999 availability. That's a cool term you may have heard. We'll talk in great deal about that. Okay, so a little bit of background information. So the whole concept of IT service management is basically the set of activities to provide services to end users. And you're thinking, okay, whatever, dude. But it's really talking about both managerial choices and design choices. In other words, somebody somewhere is going to be making a decision on whether or not you have 2 servers and 2 routers or 1 server and 1 router. They're going to be making some financial decision, and you're going to be the one, hopefully, maybe, that are going to be talking to management saying, hey, we need high availability, and so you need to be making some good choices here during the design of this so we can have our website up at all times rather than have it go down periodically. So this is the kind of the role that they're talking about, that you're somehow going to be giving advice to decision makers. So take that the way it's intended. Okay, so they have these set frameworks on that page. They talk about the control objectives for IT, COBIT, and then there's an ISO 20000. And there's the IT infrastructure library. All these things are just design principles on how to do a local area net. How to make sure your businesses stay connected and all the rest of that stuff. Anyway, and so those exist and you can use them in your line of work. So a little bit of historical perspective. In the old days, almost all applications were written in-house. I mean, you bought a big mainframe computer and you had a bunch of people and they just wrote software for you. You weren't spending that much time, going out and trying to find out if commercial software is available for you. And during that time, mainly the people who were writing the software really didn't have much knowledge of the network capability, what its limitations were, how much of this bandwidth is already being consumed, now. So, yeah, there were some problems. So now we spend an awful lot of time trying to figure out, for example, an awful lot of apps are online. Talk about Google apps and those kind of things, Google Docs and online applications where you don't have to install anything on your machine at all. So now you are very, very, very much keenly aware of how much available bandwidth I have and all those kind of things that we didn't usually have to pay much attention on. So now that apps are online and the network obviously plays a much, much bigger part in that decision making. So historically we spent an awful lot of time focusing on the end user's need, making the thing look pretty and making sure that all these requirements were met. And then after we were done, if it was slow as Christmas, over the network, then you just went to the network guys and say, hey, network guys, I need you to bump up the network because it's slowing down. Like, whoa, you're the programmer, you wrote the thing, and why is it my responsibility as a network guy to fix your problem? Okay, that's essentially what this is trying to say, although it does kind of weird things. There's a little shaded box on page 415 that's kind of sort of related, but let me just go through it because I think it's kind of cool. This is one of those famous memos, the trustworthy computing thing from Microsoft. So Bill Gates essentially said, we've been writing code for years, and I want to put a moratorium on adding new features because, customers just, they really don't really care about all these new features. What we need to be concentrating on is security. We need to change our focus, programmers, from constantly adding just new feature after new feature after new feature, and stop and make sure everything works, make sure everything is bug free. We want trustworthy computing. We want these people to feel comfortable using our products. I thought it was pretty cool, and it cost them, a gazillion dollars to do that, but it's a good idea. Now, the how that relates to this chapter is kind of sort of abstract, but let me give it to you one more time. So you have some decision maker somewhere who is not really currently concerned about, the customer-facing web page. They go, oh yeah, we got a customer-facing web page, no big deal. And then slowly over time, most of the sales don't come from brick and mortar store; they come from the web page. But the managers haven't changed their mind yet. They're still thinking, yeah, it's a network thing. You guys keep pestering me for more money and going, go away. You're bothering me. Until you get to the point where, 80% of your income is through the website and 20% is through the stores, and they haven't changed their mind yet. And you have to have a come to Jesus kind of a thing like this. You have to have something that says, now stop, hang on. You really need to be paying attention to availability over the network. This is no longer something that you can just brush off. That's kind of sort of what they're talking about here. Okay. Whew. I know, it's a bit abstract, but hey, bear with me. Okay, so continuing, they talk about the 5 managerial disciplines of service delivery. They make it try to sound like it's pretty cool. One of them is what's called the service level. Service level would be, I'm going to contract with you for a certain amount of work. Capacity, continuity, availability, and IT financial management. So we're going to go through each one of those. So on page 415, we haven't gotten very far. They first talk about the service level agreements, an SLA. So, I'm a customer somewhere, and I want to perhaps have a hosted website. I'm going to sign a service level agreement with this company that basically says, here's what I'm going to do as the customer. It spells out, here's the responsibilities for the customer, here's the responsibilities for the other guy. And so it makes it pretty doggone clear who's responsible for what. I have seen situations where people have gone into a scenario where they contract for, example of having a website. And they thought, for example, that the hosting service was doing backups. And so when there was a crash, they called up their provider and said, hey, could you restore that backup that you guys made? And they go, backup? What backup? That's your responsibility. So a service level agreement is good because it really, really, really does spell out who's responsible for doing a backup, who's responsible for doing patches, who's responsible for what. Now, you can also have some quality things in there. Your service level agreement could have, we're going to respond to all, bug requests within, 24 hours. We're going to respond to this within so many hours. We're going to guarantee you uptime, so many hours per year. So there could be a lot of stuff in there. And of course, the more you put in there, I want high availability and I want quick responses to my bug requests and feature requests and things of that nature. Well, then it's going to cost you more, right? So this is like a contract. All right. So typically what it is, getting back to what the book says, a catalog of services plus the binding agreement with the customer. So in other words, here's all the services that we're going to provide. We're going to do this, and this. And him, and then you're going to be doing this, and here's how much it's going to cost. So it is a good way to understand other people's priorities. I mean, for example, what's your how important is data retention? What's your data retention policy for backups? Well, the company probably has no idea what it is you do for a living, and so you're going to have to tell them this is important to me, and I want this level of data retention for backup. Or another example might be, security at rest. Let's say you're doing medical data and you're storing medical data on some SQL server in the sky, and you have an SLA And you're going to have to tell them, okay, now I need the data at rest security because of HIPAA requirements. And so, you're going to have to tell them what the requirements are because they're not going to know unless you tell them. So this SLA is a good thing. It's good for the customer. It's good for the company. Both people get together. No surprises. That's the whole point. No surprises. The next one they talk about on page 416 is capacity management. So their definition, which is, it's okay. Managing the infrastructure at the right size. Okay. Basically what they're talking about is, I might have a thing where I say, I want, throughput at so many kilobytes per second, or I want no more than 20 millisecond latency. Some sort of a figure, some sort of something that's measurable. I can't just say, I'd like the website to be fast. What does that mean? But you're going to have to say, I want web requests to have a response within 15 milliseconds. That is measurable. Okay. So these kinds of things are all about metrics. You set up some metrics, and the company's now responsible for tweaking the system to be able to maintain that level of service that you agreed to. If they agreed to, 15 milliseconds response time, well, then they're going to have to, if other people start, consuming resources, they're going to have to up their game in order to maintain your level of service that you agreed to. Cool. All right. Continuity management. This used to be called disaster recovery, and that was a very sexy title. And when we get to this section, I'll explain how it got renamed to business continuity. That made a heck of a lot more sense. So we're talking about what happens if there's a fire or a flood. What happens if there's a hacker attack? What happens if there's a power outage? I mean, what are your contingency plans for these things? And so you could have, for example, an agreement that said, we have a battery backup and it's going to last for 15 minutes. We're going to have, a gas-powered generator out there that's going to pick up, and so we're good for a couple of days. And so, you tell them in this agreement that you can survive for, whatever it is, 48 hours without power. Okay. So, yes, those are the kinds of things. Continuity management. Availability management. And this is now the topic of high availability, which we're going to spend a great deal on in the rest of this chapter. But high availability basically means I want to have a guarantee that using the website as an example is not 95% uptime. You might think, wow, that's a lot. I mean, if my website is available 95% of the time, doesn't that sound really good? That's 18 days. Because 95% of 365 is 18. In other words, is it okay for your website to be down 18 days? I don't know. Maybe not. So you need to pick the number you want. I want to have my website down no more than 5 days, or no more than 2 days, or no more than 5 minutes. Whatever it is you want, this is where you have to say what the availability is. Okay. And so there's the whole topic we're going to talk about how to maintain and how to choose network devices and servers and software in order to pull that off, because it's a little complex. You have to design this up front. You can't add in high availability after the design. That does not work. Okay. The last one of that is this IT financial stuff. And the idea is you have to have very good instrumentation on how much resources you're using. For example, if I have a website and I'm being charged by the amount of storage that I'm using and the amount of traffic I'm generating, then there has to be some sort of metrics in there that keeps track of all this, so I get an accurate bill. That's essentially what that's about. And, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this up again in just a few.